Hello viewers, Super TT here. Welcome to round number 5 of the AOR V8 Supercar Championship around Brands Hatch. So I missed out last week. I was too busy at work. So it's good to be back racing in this championship. So for those of you who don't know the drill, this is my best qualifying lap out of the 5 laps we get. And as you can see, it is wet. There was a 50% chance that this race would be wet, and it turned out to be wet. Now, weirdly enough, I did literally 2 laps practice in the wet. I only did 2, genuine 2 laps, and I did about 100 in the dry, so I just was not prepared for the wet at all. I just thought that perhaps my knowledge of where the puddles were would hopefully see me through, and we'll see later on if it did. So yeah, this is my qualifying lap. It was quite a decent lap in the end. My lap before this was a 5th place. So I've got a decent banker lap in there at the moment. The main thing about the wet around here is learning where these huge puddles are. There's a massive one here. I've got to go around that one, don't want to go through it. Going past RegamusMaximus there, my teammate, who's had a bit of an off. Coming into the very fast right-hander here, very hard one to get right consistently. And there's another huge puddle on the inside here. You want to go around the outside of that, like so. Get a bit sideways on the exit, probably lose a 10th or 2. But coming up into the final corner, braking a bit earlier than obviously you would in the dry, get hooked up with the apex quite nicely, onto the outside of the bend, and then the straight, which is still kind of a corner, it's almost bent this straight. There's a huge puddle on the inside as well on that straight, you don't want to go down there. So there we go, that's a 5th place. We kept our 5th place. I was in 5th before that lap, just improved my time. Wasn't able to get past Phil into 4th. So this is the start. Luckily there's not a massive puddle on this side of the grid, or this high up on the grid. A bit further back there is a huge puddle. So off the line we go, in a 5th position on the inside. We're going to get up the inside of Phil there, get a slightly better start than he did. And up the inside, looking up the inside of Sam even. Don't quite make contact there, which is good. And I'm on the inside of Phil into a safe 4th. So I'm going to go to the inside to protect that position. He's going to go around the outside. There's no way around, the long way round. So I've preserved my 4th position. So I've gained 1 position. That's fairly good going. And I haven't crashed. Always good news. Through turn 3, the very tricky corner there. Very deceiving on the entry, and a massive puddle on the entry as well. Going into turn 4. Braking on the 100 metres board. Going down into 2nd gear. And getting a very decent exit there. That was a very difficult corner to get right throughout this whole race. Losing traction, I was considering going into 3rd gear, but I thought I was doing quite well, so I thought I'd just keep doing what I'm doing in 2nd gear. Coming through the long right hand at the back of the circuit, keeping with the guys ahead. This is quite good going considering I did 2 laps practice and about 100 in the dry, so all of that dry practice was pretty much wasted. Seeing as we're not going to do it in the dry. Coming through the long right hander, get the hooked up with the apex quite nicely. You can see that Sam has developed a gap slightly. I have been left behind ever so slightly, but about half a second there. But that is significant in the grand scheme of things. You don't want to be losing half a second a lap every lap. So through the final turn, we've got Phil right behind us still, and that is going to be a theme of the race. Pressure from Phil. I can't even talk. Going over the line on to lap number 2. We've got a 39 lap race here, so quite a lot of laps, but still about an hour in length. That's the idea of these races. I'm going to go a bit wide here and go very deep into turn 2 Druids, and Phil's going to appear on my right hand side. I'm going to let him pass there. I backed out of the throttle. I thought it was just safer just to let him go rather than fight going downhill into the dangerous left-hander with the puddle across the track. Probably the safest option. It is a long race. Might as well try and preserve time rather than position at this time of the race. So again, through the left-hander, not losing too much traction there, so quite a decent exit. Looking behind at the distance boards on the left, Rumbum is in 6th, about 100 feet or so behind. So I've got a bit of a gap to him. Don't want to worry too much about him at the moment. Just thinking about trying to get that gap back to 2nd and 3rd at the moment. Now the one thing that is quite hard about this track is that there are lots of braking boards which got destroyed throughout the race. Most notably this one on the right hand side here. Made it very tricky to be consistent when braking, and your braking is so important, especially in the wet, to set yourself up for the corners. Run Bum actually losing a position there, and I've got about 400 feet now ahead of 6th position, so that gives you just that confidence to look forwards rather than backwards. It's always good to know that the guys behind aren't that close, so you can just focus on getting a good lap time without having to defend. So 2nd and 3rd there, line astern, that is Jordan and Sam 2nd and 3rd, and you've got Kerry in the lead at the moment. Very quick in practice in the dry, and the wet I suppose. So most of us did a lot of running in the dry, and the time's actually very close. But it turned out to be a wet race in the end, so all of that practice counted for nothing. So we're going to move forwards here to lap 6. You can see that the gaps are fairly consistent, pretty much the same as they were a few laps ago, so I haven't been left too much, maybe just a little bit. And it was this section here I typically caught up, this first section. First 2 corners I seem to gain, and there's probably from about here onwards that I started to lose time, mainly the middle sector of the lap, although actually the first sector of this lap is actually very long. And that is Sam going wide there at turn 4. It was quite a tricky corner, that one, to get right. The car sort of wanted to go quite long a lot of the times, especially if you started braking, because you're braking and turning at the same time. The car doesn't always like that, and you can go long sometimes going onto the grass, and if you go onto the grass you lose so much time around here, as some of you may know. So going into this right-hander through the puddle that time, by keeping the car on the track on the exit. Phil and Jordan there side by side into the right-hander. Not the best place to be side by side, but they've sorted out their positions there, and Shuffle has actually kept 2nd position as it stands. So coming through the penultimate corner, Sam is still there, he's still very close behind him, he's got Robo on his tail, so Robo hoping at this point to be dragged along by Sam to try and catch up with us guys slightly ahead. I'm going to fast forward onto the end of lap 7, so I've caught up with Phil. Jordan actually kept his gap, so Phil's actually just dropped back in his own. I've gone a bit wide on the exit of the final turn, and Sam's going to come past here. That's no worries, because in the long run he's most likely going to beat me anyway, so I thought I might as well just let him go. Plus it is very early in the race, no point fighting too much. The gap to 6th has actually increased quite a lot, up to about 900 feet. So again, I don't have to worry too much about the person behind. I can focus on going forwards. This very tricky entry to this turn 3, going through the puddle, then you brake after the puddle, go out wide as you dare, but you don't want to go too wide, because again, if you get on that grass you are going to be there forever and you will lose a lot of time. So through the long left hand, you want to avoid that curb on the right hand side if possible. As we fast forward to lap 9, he's got very close here. The battle for 2nd is 4 cars within about 2 seconds, so it's actually quite a decent race at this point. And you can see that Sam going a little bit wide on the exit, but you can take that dirt on the exit of turn 3 without losing too much traction, which is fairly good. So through here, again very close, no one really daring to overtake at this point, especially on this straight as well. There's a massive puddle on the right hand side here, and you really just do not want to go anywhere near that side of the track, especially as it's a right-hander you approach from the left. I've been left behind a little bit at this point, as you can see, but because they're so close to each other, sometimes that does mean they bunch up a lot more, and you can actually catch up a bit easier because they're more focused on each other. So this is a very close lap. This sort of shows the closeness of the front of the field. Normally I'm not this close to the front. Maybe it is just the wet weather that is helping me to be this close to the front. But I think if it was dry, I think I would have been fairly close to the front as well. So we're going to fast forward to lap 11. That is Phil going wide and losing 3rd to Sam. And coming into turn 4, he's going to make another mistake and go wide here. And as I say, you lose a lot of time if you do that. So that's me through into a genuine 4th position, which is fairly good. And I predicted at the start of the season or I didn't predict, I wished for a podium position. And that's Phil going wide there, so I'm going to develop a big gap here to the guy behind, about 800 feet. And yeah, back to my targets for the season, I was hoping to at least get a podium in one of the races. I know that would have been a long shot, but you just never know. If you can be consistent, it's always possible. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here to lap 14, and I've made the mistake this time. So Phil's going to eradicate that 800 feet gap. He did stay constant about 800 feet for a few laps, but here I'm going to make a bit of an error of judgment, go through the puddle and come across, and Phil's going to go wide onto the grass. So at the end of that lap I decided to let him pass. I didn't think that was a fair move by me, because I think he did have the run on me, probably would have got past. So I thought nicest thing to do would just be to let him go back past into fourth. He goes a bit wide there and I actually nearly wipe him out there. Luckily he kept control and we don't have an accident. Now this lap here pretty much sets a precedent for the rest of the race. It's going to be very close between the two of us for the rest of this race. It's coming through turn 3 again. You can go wide there, and he doesn't lose any speed by going 4 wheels off the circuit. You could call that illegal, but I probably did that quite a few times as well, if I'm completely honest. So coming through there, getting a little bit too close. He goes wide onto the curb, loses a bit of traction. I think he would have got away if he had not gone onto that curb. So I'm going to catch up here. This is not a good overtaking space. Again, that puddle is just huge on the right hand side especially. You don't want to go up the inside there. It's better to wait for another opportunity. Go a little bit wide, lose a bit of time there, but not too much. I'm still on his tail. Coming through the back section. This corner coming up is so hard to get right, but I think I've got it down fairly consistently. Get over to the left hand side before cutting across the curb, and that you can actually go 4 wheels across that curb and keep the lap keep the lap clean, sorry. And well, if the lap is clean, then I presume it's legal. So we're going to fast forward to lap 18. So we're very close to the pits now. So I'm going to go up the inside. He made a bit of a mistake there. Don't quite have the line, so I'm going to let him go back into the lead. Although coming to this corner, I make contact with him and unfortunately couldn't quite keep on the track. That wasn't a very good move from me. I perhaps should have left a bit more space. But at this point, talking to Phil on the mic, should I let you back pass? Should I wait? He said no, so I carried on. So the rule is, if you tap someone off, you should let them back past, unless they say don't bother. So he did say to carry on. So coming into the pits at the end of lap 19, this is a one-stop race. So we're going to do a 19 stop. We're going to do a 19-lap stint followed by a 20-lap stint, and you can just about do that in the dry. In the wet you can go a little bit longer, but that serves me nicely. Going into the pits nice and early, I actually gain a bit of time over Phil, about another 200 feet or so at this point of the race. He was about 100 feet behind, and then I've opened that gap up to about 500 feet, so I actually gained quite a bit there over that lap. Sometimes it is better to pit early because you're putting less fuel into the car, so your pit stop should in theory be quicker. So coming through turn 3 again, look at that, going across 2 wheels onto the curb, and that is a back marker going wide. A lot of back marker going wide on this track, on this race. This deaf dealer, I'm speaking to him on the mic, he's going to let me past. Quite a decent move there to let me go. Then I have to dive up the inside here of one of the back markers to get through, but a fairly clean move. A bit risky, especially in the rain, but something's got to be done. Halfway around that lap, I get very wide and almost go wide onto the gravel, but just about keep it on the track. And I was actually quite proud of myself to keep it on the track for the majority of this race. Very easy track to go wrong on. Very easy to make mistakes here. And on lap 30, I do again very, very close to going off there, but just about managed to keep it on the track. And Phil's actually narrowed his gap to me down to about 200 feet, so he halved it. It was about 400 feet for a good 10 laps, and we were lapping pretty consistently with each other. But that mistake there granted him about 200 feet towards me. So getting a lot closer now, this battle. We're going to fast forward to lap 33. He's right on my tail now. I'm going to go a little bit wide here, and he's going to look up the inside. I'm going to come across to cover that overtaking opportunity to make sure he doesn't go past there. He's going to back out, probably the most sensible thing to do at that point. Very good driving from the both of us, I think. A lot of respect between drivers at the front of the grid. Not always seeing that further back on the grid, I must say. But this is one of the races where there was quite a lot of respect between myself and Phil. Always talking on the mic, trying to work with each other as well as fight each other at the same time. So coming through at the end of lap 33, he's still very close here, less than 100 feet, and I know without having to look behind that he is pretty much right on my tail. So coming through here, I can again, looking at that distance meters in feet on the left hand side, you can judge pretty much where they are just by looking at that without having to look behind, which is an advantage. With having to look behind, you have to reach to press another button, and you're going to break your concentration for half a second while you're looking behind, and you don't want to do that in the rain. So fast forwarding to lap 35, another 2 laps here. I'm going to go very deep, very shallow, should I say, into this corner. I was very wary that he's very close behind me. Go onto the curb, and he's going to come up the outside. I'm going to come across a bit early this time than I did a couple of laps ago. Not wipe him out this time. So a decent defensive move there. Come across nice and early without giving him an opportunity to come past. And again, he can't get past there. So I was pretty wary at this point. He's going to try and find a way through, but I was actually fairly confident that I could put my car in the correct position to keep him at bay. So this last 4 laps or so, or last 10 laps you could say, was quite nerve-wracking. But at the same time, I was actually fairly focused, more than I normally am in these races. Normally I'm a bit more I lose concentration a lot easier than normal, but in this one I seem to concentrate a lot better. We're going to fast forward to lap 37, so only 3 laps left to go. Going up into Drury's, it gets very close to going past, but again, I've positioned my car well, he can't really go anywhere, and there's no way he can go past there. Through the left-hander, he's again very close behind, less than 100 feet, although I am gaining a distance at this exact point. Go a little bit wide, thankfully not onto the grass, but that gives me a straighter line exit onto the long back straight. Thankfully he can't get past at that point there. A back marker there on the side of the track. We lapped him about 7 times. So lap 38, this is where it starts to kick off. Around the back of the circuit here, only 1.5 laps left to go. He is going to just tap me there. I'm going to go sideways slightly because of it. Going into the long right-hander here, I've got the inside line. I just about... At the time I didn't know if I made contact. It looked like I did because he went wide, but there was nothing I could do because I was on the brakes turning full to the right. There's nothing I could do about that. And I did say over the mic, was that fair, was that fair? And I think he went along with it, that it was okay. So that has given me a decent gap now as we move on to the final lap. I'm in 3rd position. This is a good race. I'm very pleased with my pace in this one. Not normal that I'm not usually this high up, because the top 4 in this championship are very, very quick. Perhaps it is the wet weather driving, as I mentioned before. Perhaps it is just the wet weather that has helped me here. So I'm hoping that Nürburgring is wet. So we're going to come through here on the final turn of the race. We've done 1 hour and 4 minutes roughly of driving. Intense concentration here, but I'm going to come through to collect 3rd position, which I'm very pleased about. It's actually a very good race in the end. A couple of iffy moments where it could have been a bit cleaner, but I did let Phil back once, and he was okay with the moves in the lobby chat. So that's going to end this race. I'm going to collect 15 points, which is actually fairly decent, and I go a couple better positions than what I usually get. Normally finishing 6th in this championship. So 3rd is obviously a nice jump up for me, and hopefully I can carry that form into the Nürburgring. So here are the final results. Kerry, KBTK92 winning by a landslide once again. Sam in 2nd. It was Jordan in 9th. Shuffle actually went backwards in that race because he had a bit of trouble, a mechanical problem as a result of a crash on turn 1. So I profited from his mistakes, or from his misfortune, definitely, but there's 20 other drivers who could have profited into the position as well, so I was the first one to make the most of it. So that's going to pretty much wrap up this video, guys, so let me know your thoughts on it. I was very pleased to finish third, going a couple of places better than what I usually get. I do apologise for my commentary, trying to get this video out very quickly, so the commentary isn't always the best, as I always say, because I'm trying to rush this video out. But I hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the like button if you did like this video, subscribe if you want to see more. There's 3 more rounds of this championship, which will be out every Friday for the next couple of weeks. That's going to be it from me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.